So, winter is easy. You can grab a thermal stone or some insulation and use your campfires or even burn the environment. But did you know you don't even really need to use any fire sources at all to survive winter? Some may think that I'm going to say you can use magma pools or hot springs to maintain heat, but that's actually not what I'm going to talk about. What I'm going to talk about is this. How long can you survive winter without any fire? So let's get right into it. First of all, let's talk about the settings for this world. Very simple and basic. You go to the world generation part of settings and set it to a winter start. That is all you need for this challenge. I'm going to start this challenge off with Weber because he has quick access to one of the methods I will be using to heat myself up. There are very few characters that can really do this challenge and Weber is one of them. I've had people say, oh, you can just heal all the damage with Wartox. And you know what? Yes, you can. But it's not fun or in spirit of the challenge, so Wartox for me is banned. But with that said, we are into the world. As you enter a winter start world, the game is not forgiving. The world is immediately as cold as it can be, so you don't get that starting day of winter where you normally won't freeze. You instead start taking damage immediately within the first 20 seconds. So you really have to figure out how to save yourself quickly before you die to freezing. And I found a way to save myself. Because there was a cave entrance right as I spawned. I mined it out and headed inwards. And I'm not sure if you know this, but as you enter a cave entrance, there is a spawn light that is made. This spawn light will protect you slightly during the dangerous seasons of winter and summer. During the winter, it will keep you 10 degrees above freezing, which really helps out. And so with this, we can use this as a basic way to collect heat to survive winter. However, we could only access this light during dusk and night on the surface, and anytime we enter the caves. So we can't always rely on it for travel. No restarting the world to access this light. So now that we have ourselves a place to think, I've collected some grass and twigs that are around the cave spawn, and then I realized I immediately screwed up the challenge. Because I decided to place my eggs right at the beginning. Now we can't really farm our spiders without dying. My first attempt ended up being a restart. Bummer, ain't it? On my second attempt, I decided to explore a bit more. I gathered a couple of rabbits from the spawn savanna so that I can craft a small amount of insulation via the rabbit earmuffs. I'm so glad they made these items base tier items versus science tier items. Without them, I don't think this challenge would be possible. After collecting the rabbits, I kept on exploring, as there was no caves right at the start of the world, so I had to search for one. And it didn't take too long until I found one, this time with my eggs in hand. We can now actually start the run. While underground, you are mostly safe from the elements only while near the spawn light. This gives a chance for me to really evaluate what's nearby and determine that this cave is definitely much better than the one I had in the previous world. This is because I have access to rocks and mush trees now. I craft my rabbit earmuffs so that way I can extend the meager 10 degrees that the spawn light provides, and use that time to check more of my surroundings and chop some trees. Once that is done, I plant my spiders and begin farming. I really did not want to use my tools to fight the spiders, so I decided to punch them. Was it the best option? I honestly have no idea, but it ended up working out. The goal here with the spiders is to get the spider nest to level 3, because if we do that, we can sleep in the nest to gain our temperature back, meaning we can actually do things beyond our little spawn light. So while I wait for spiders to respawn, I can go around looking for items I can collect. And luckily there are some gold boulders inside the red mushroom biome next to me. I can only mine out 1 or 2 rocks before I start to freeze, and I must retreat back to the cave entrance staircase. With enough gold and rocks to make a science machine, I can now access a better weapon in the spear. And that's about it for now. Part of my original plan was to get a crock pot, so that I can cook foods that provide a warming buff. I collected more stone for it, but then I realized I can't access charcoal because I can't burn things. So the idea of using food to supplement my warming is completely out of the window. The only way I can get charcoal is to fight Krampus, find the Dragonfly Desert, or get lucky and find the terrarium chest. So with that plan axed, all I can really do is farm up my spiders until I get them to level 3. This took actually quite a while to do because I was not getting good RNG on silk. You only need 10 silk to get to level 3, but it took me about 4 days in order to get it up to level 3. So during that time I was basically playing Skyblock DST. I was able to get 5 silk to speed up the spider spawns, and you may say that this shows I don't play Weber much. I didn't know that befriending a spider you haven't met yet gives you sanity. So that's a cool thing to know. After killing the newly spawned spiders, I did a quick reconnaissance on the surface to see what I can get, grabbed just a few basics, and some more food and went back down to continue farming the nest. An interesting thing about farming a single nest is that spiders normally take about 90 seconds to respawn, but if you attack on the silk, it will cause a warrior to spawn. This is in retaliation to defend the nest. And this number of warriors is completely separated from the amount of spiders in the nest, meaning you can double your spider count by attacking a spider on the nest, which is pretty interesting. Not much really was going on in the caves, so I did some exploring to see if I could get some more mushrooms in the biome I was in. While waiting for spiders, sometimes they would spawn and just go into the darkness. I would end up dropping the monster meat I had in my inventory in order to bait spiders to come close to the spawn light, so that I may kill them. When it was day, there was a rabbit that spawned from the earthquake that I used to trigger the spider nest. A spider spawned but ran into the darkness. I went after it with the meat and a torch, but as soon as the spider is coming, my torch goes out, meaning I lost all the meat I had collected, and I basically had no more food. In addition to that, I had to kick random players joining the world I made. Maybe I should have made it private so people can't join. But after that, I was finally able to get the last silk we needed to get our tier 3 nest. We can now finally get warmer than 10 degrees. So I decided it would be good to have warmth to explore the surface for the first time without the risk of dying. It's been about 3 days too, so that means we have a small beard for Weber. It doesn't provide much insulation at this stage, but any extra time helps. We travel to the surface for a bit of collecting basic supplies and I start to nearly freeze, meaning I have to go back to the cave again. And we go back to the grind of farming spiders, traveling through the cave and sleeping. What's really cool though is that you don't even really need to fight the spiders if you have meat. You can befriend them, pick them up, and just murder them in your inventory without causing much trouble for the other spiders. Great if there are too many and you don't want to kite them all. But now on day 6, since we're able to move further now, thanks to the spider nest, we're building up our resources, getting enough items, twigs, grass, rocks, and gold, so that I may make an alchemy engine for access to more items. A lantern would help me a lot to explore the caves without the need of grass and twigs for torches. What's funny is that every advancement I made in this challenge, a random person decided to join, so they ended up getting the boot as well. I'm rather low on food though, because I lost lots of my monster meat. So I go around the mushroom biome, exploring, gathering shrooms so I can eat and sleep, as well as light bulbs for my lantern. With that extra warmth, I go back to the surface to do some hunting, killing tall birds, and gathering food. We end up seeing the end goal of the challenge, which is to kill Claus. But that will be for later. For now, I ended up deciding to tank some of the freezing damage, just because I'm going to be able to heal it back up when I go down to sleep. I really needed to get some new rabbit muffs before I went back down again, so I did that on the way back to the caves. I made it down with low HP and farmed up more spiders, but I actually almost ended up dying in them as well. I was one hit away from death, but I was able to survive and sleep all my troubles away. I wanted to explore because I wanted to move my nest somewhere else, away from the mushroom cave. I ended up finding a few blue caps and also a bunny village, which does not help me as much as Weber. Low on temperature, I go back to my safe zone, farming spiders one last time and sleep one last time, because I decided I'm going to move back up to the surface since I have enough silk to remake the tier 3 nest. I need to be able to explore the surface more and see what I can do to gain better insulation than just my beard and earmuffs. The only problem with the surface nest though is that I cannot sleep in it during the day. I can only sleep in it during dusk and night. So if I mistime my temperature at the day, I will end up taking unnecessary damage from freezing. And because of that, I head back down into the caves and rewarm myself and collect anything else I was missing before the move. Back on the surface, we farm up the spiders we have, warm up again by sleeping, and explore the surface some more. We choose a direction and just walk that way, collecting any food and turkeys we come across. Quickly, we actually come across some more spiders from the swamp, which is a great find. We can upgrade these nests and make a spot that we can warm ourselves up for our travels. But for now, we will just take the spiders back with us to their original nest and warm up back there. Once all warmed up, we take the nest and plant... Once all warmed up, we take the nest I planted and any spiders around and move our base to the swamp. I upgraded and take out one of the nests so that I can place it wherever I want and upgrade it the other. A funny thing about this is you actually can't sleep in a nest while war is going on, because the nest gets aggroed and knocks Weber out. You have to wait for peacetime to sleep. I really needed to warm up before daytime so that way I can avoid taking damage. But now with that I can explore. We have a full beard now on Weber, which is helping me a lot now, despite only having earmuffs as insulation. As I explore, we find Beefalo Savannah pretty quickly. This is great because we can now finally upgrade our insulation. We can upgrade either to a Beefalo hat or to a winter hat if we're unlucky with horn drops. We kill one, and it didn't drop a horn sadly. I ended up setting up a tier 3 nest here so I can warm up and also wait for night so I can shave the beefalos and get more fur out of them than I would by just killing them. I create a science machine just before though so that I can make a beef hat if I do get a horn. I also make my first backpack. Surprising to go this long without making a backpack, but sometimes it's just not needed for survival. We use the beefalo to farm up some spiders, sleep to warm up, and continue our next day. We take the beefalo away from the herd to fight, but no luck on that beefalo for a horn. We find another beefalo that's alone and proceed to fight that one, with that one giving us a horn for our beefalo hat, making our insulation last much longer than it used to. In addition to getting the beef hat, we find a track, meaning that we could potentially get the best chest item for insulation as well. We follow it dutifully, and it almost tricks us by hiding behind a boulder, but unfortunately we lose it before we find the koalephant. No koalephant, but we can still explore, so we warm back up in our nest and explore the swamp. We end up finding another track, and hopefully we can find it before it turns dark. We follow the track, but it gets dark. We must rely on the lantern to find it. We don't lose sight of the track and eventually find the koalephant. I get my spiders to attack it and eventually fight it myself to get the meats and the winter trunk. We now have access to the full insulation set. But having this set with weather basically means we can get about 20 seconds per degree of movement. Since we can get up to 40 degrees, that is 800 seconds of warmth that I can use for traveling. Onwards to exploring, we find the bee queen and steal some honey, and we take a wormhole right to the bunch of hound mounds. We travel along the D-Fly Desert, opening tumbles, and we find a spider quarry that also leads us to Oasis. Spider quarry is nice because we can get lots of food and healing and also just warm up here, which is what we end up doing. But this hound fort next to the quarry had other plans. They did not want to let me rest in the spider inn. So now what I'm doing is I'm searching for where antlers are, so that way we can do the Claus fight. I'm preparing items and making sure I'm ready for the fight. What I need is a bit of healing and armor. However, since I couldn't cook, I need to use either glands, blue mushrooms, honey poultice, or sleeping to heal. While exploring, I did come across a killer bee field, and I found another cave entrance. I wanted to see what was behind it, and I was hoping to find a blue mush forest, but I did find something that could be helpful, that being the spider rock biome. I decided to collect a few spiders and take them up with me to the surface. I bring them back to my swamp base and decide to try and collect a few supplies for Prestigiator. I feel like I'm going to need an ice staff for the fight against Claus to help combat the fire deer destroying my spiders. So I go out and collect some rabbits before dark, and come back and make the magic machine. Once I got my ice staff, all that's needed is just to find the deers. So I go with my posse of spitters to the mosaic, and they get to have some fun with the hound wave and also killing a tallbird. These spiders are just so good. We end up finding the deers, but there is no trees around, so we had to chase them for a bit. We ended up getting the antlers and placing them near the Claus sack so when we're ready to fight him, which is coming up soon. Back at the base, we place our spitters into a bag for safekeeping while I go out and collect a few more items. First is finding Mactusk to see if we can get a tusk for him. Luckily, the wormhole in the swamp leads to Mactusk, which is also right next to the Pig King. We try to kill Mactusk, but no luck on getting a tusk. I guess we're gonna have to fight Claus without a cane. We go back to the swamp for reed collecting for healing. We're gonna end up using the honey poultice for our healing for the Claus fight, since it's the strongest heal we can get without needing fire. There's enough reeds in the swamp for about 8 paper. This is honestly the first time I end up making this item, by the way. Challenges tend to lead you to use items you've never used before, which is honestly kind of fun. While doing that, it's actually nearing the end of the winter season, meaning it's starting to get to the point where the ambient temperature is not freezing. We're actually able to walk around without taking damage for a few moments. That means we get to our final warm-up in the spider nests. We can now use silk to make a tent for the fight for Claus. We make a handbat and gather honey for our poultice. We also go back to the wormhole so we can collect the pan flute at the Glommer statue for the fight. We check our spitter bag and see that it's empty, but it's not empty. The spitters just decided to play a prank on us before we go to the fight. We make our helmets and arm up our spitters, as well as gather materials for helmets for myself. We arrive at the Claus sack to see it is gone, and no one needs to see me spawn it in. We place our tent and are ready for battle, but first we get a bit of food from this halberd. Okay, now we're ready. The spitters do a lot of work against Claus here, but you really got to be careful that they don't attack the deers. You don't want Claus to become enraged because then he does double damage and also has additional armor that you have to go through. I freeze the fire deer on the first go so that the spiders can keep attacking, but once the ice deer does its spell, I lose most of control of the spiders and I start taking freeze damage, meaning the spiders end up getting caught in the fire spell as well. I sleep to try and warm up, and I end up getting out of the tent so that I can use the flute on all the enemies to separate them again. I try to target Claus again, but with the same thing happening. Freeze and ice spell gets me, the spiders target the deer, and I have to stop them from fighting again. Eventually all my spiders die out and it's just 1v1 against Claus. Claus is probably my favorite boss battle because you can avoid a lot of damage from him, and he is very interactive in the way he fights, trying to avoid spells and also get your damage in. It is a very skillful battle, matching timings and understanding how to dodge the attacks. and you can even use some of his attacks against him, like the fire attack. You just have to keep watch on what spell is done because you can get more hits on the fire spell than you can on the ice spell. It's all about maximizing the number of hits and following the pattern. Not long we get to the halfway point and he summons 2 Krampuses per player to support him in the fight. This is the main reason that I use the flute, because Krampus hurts the fight and it's hard to kite 2 Krampuses at once, so the flute makes it easier. We then repeat the pattern we have been doing of 4 hits, 8 hits, 4 hits, and 4 hit, and eventually Claus goes down. And then he gets back up stronger and with the lunge attack. This phase can be a bit hard to do without taking damage. There is a way to dodge his lunge attack, but I'm not good at it. You do follow the similar pattern as before, but now you just got to watch out for the lunge attack. Sometimes he doesn't and other times he doesn't. I still haven't figured it out, but with perseverance and patience, we take out Claus, completing our King of Winter challenge. This is a really fun challenge to do since it really makes you have to think on how to survive. You can easily mess up, especially at the start. It can also be a bit RNG dependent too. Sad to say, I don't think most characters can do the challenge, but I can see the potential for Wicker, WX, Warley, and Weber to complete this challenge. Try it out for yourself and let me know how it goes. This has been Tara, and I will see you next time. Take care.